Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time. We are back with the man, myth, the legend, Mr. Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great. Michael, how are you today?
I'm doing well. So we are right on the cusp of 2023. I think when you look at least the stock market and the bond market, they have stopped worrying about inflation as priority number one. I think a recession has jumped to the forefront and become the most important thing that the market is focused on. But I want to know what Greg was focused on when you're looking at 2023. You're part of lots of businesses on the board. You're investing in lots of different areas. What's kind of top of mind for you when you look at 2023?
Opportunity.
Yes.
Lots of opportunities. Yeah, there are some concerns and some risks. And I think once we get through the end of this year, get into next year, we're going to be able to start quantifying that. The one thing that's really interesting is the market is still fighting the Fed. What I mean is the market is pricing in a Fed funds rate a full 100 basis points lower than what the Fed is projecting right now. And
I
the
saw that.
markets do not believe the Fed is going to get to their target rate.
Yeah.
So, and the reason they don't believe it is because they're forecasting a recession in 2023, and they're forecasting an event where the Fed is potentially going to have to pivot, which is leading some economists, some analysts to call for a double dip recession, double peak recession next year. So a lot of economists believe that we're seeing recession succeed right now, but because or inflation recede right now. Did I say double dip recession? I meant double peak inflation
Right.
next year.
Inflation.
A lot of economists and analysts are projecting that, obviously inflation's coming down, but that a recession is going to happen. The Fed's going to pivot, flood liquidity. That's going to shoot inflation right back up and get a double
Oh,
top inflation
yeah.
potentially next year, which is going to create, a situation. So a lot of
Yeah, that's
uncertainty, a
very
lot of
much
different
like the
calls.
1970s. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah, a lot of
double.
different things. And,
Yeah.
Felix Zoloff was out over the
Mm,
last week putting out a lot of interviews, and he's a very interesting guy. He's called everything 100% right on from what we've seen
okay.
and where we're at. And he
Okay.
takes more of a global perspective, in terms of where we're at now that we haven't been in 30 years in terms of,
Mhm.
deglobalization, aging population, recession risk. He is forecasting a double top inflation going into next year and a severe crisis somewhere around the world that's going to cause central banks to pivot and
Wow.
create that liquidity problem that plunges us. And he, to your question many times, is projecting even something as severe as a depressionary event in the markets.
Wow. What was his name one more time? I honestly had not heard of him. Sorry.
Felix Zoloff with Zaulof, something like that.
I will check him out. I will
Yeah,
look.
he's a really good one. Interesting. A lot of really, big macroeconomic, perception of the world. He does research for, investment funds, hedge funds, and
Nice.
kind of a
I
Ray
will check him out.
Dalio,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, I my daily financials news this morning. I was forced to kind of address something that I'm seeing a lot in my comments. A lot of people in comments have bought into the fact, or I don't know if bought in is the right word. I'll use it anyway. That they think a Fed pivot, meaning a cut's coming this summer, right? Me, Kevin's talking about it. Uh, Jeremy Siegel, lots of folks. And I don't see it. Frankly, I hope the economy stays strong enough where the Fed doesn't and we can get rid of the Fed put and all of that. But this is what I looked at when I said, okay, if you're going to get a Fed cut by June, this is what I think would have to happen. None of this is probable, in my opinion. It's all possible. One is we have to have an unemployment spike to north of 5%, in my opinion. Two, we have to have not a shallow recession, but it has to be deep, meaning greater than 2.5% negative GDP. Third, CPI headline inflation needs to come down to at least 4%. And finally, the stock market has to drop 25% from here. I think of all four of those things happen by June, you might get a Fed cut. Again, I hope none of those happen and we kind of move through this, but those are, I mean, like if somebody put a gun to my head and how would I get to a Fed cut? Those are the four things. What do you think?
Yeah, the biggest thing that they're looking at right now is employment. So you have to get unemployment up. And that's what a lot of people are predicting going into next year. They think we're going to see, unemployment rise, and that's going to give the Fed ammunition to pause and or pivot. I'm not sure they're really worried or concerned or looking at the markets. Um,
Oh, a
you know, you
distant
would need,
fourth. Yeah.
yeah,
Distant.
you would need a big event there. You know, and inflation is obviously an issue. And if you get a double peak inflation, then, you know, they can't go anywhere. But yeah, there are a lot of people, and you know, people have been calling for that all the way through. Again, it's that
It's been
whole,
a year. I've been hearing
yeah,
about the pivot. Yeah.
yeah, markets are fighting the Fed. Everybody's fighting the Fed. Elon Musk, you know,
Mm.
Kathy Wood, you know, and it's mostly people that are over leveraged, that their whole existence is based on zero
Yeah.
interest rates and flooding liquidity. They're basically begging for what they're looking for. And, you know, Jeremy Siegel, I mean, he's been wrong pretty much the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. He was certainly right saying the Fed was late. I'll give him his flowers there.
Well,
Yeah, I
that's,
think
I
he was.
mean, yeah, everybody, I mean,
Yeah.
that's not even a call.
No,
That's just,
no, yeah, they were late. He was certainly one of the first, but yeah, I think he's way off. And again, to your point, I think there's a lot of people begging for a Fed pivot because it helps their business. I don't know if you've seen this. I'm sure you have, at least at some level. The car market, there's some really ugly data in the car market about loans and values. Um, there's about to be a lot of repossessions. There's actually people that can't afford their current car. They're going to get another car loan on a cheaper car. That lender wouldn't approve them. Now they're going to approve them because they know they're going to default on the other one. There's just some wild stuff. And uh, speaking of Elon Musk and Tesla, right? Near as I can tell, they're still expecting 40% growth. I don't see how that happens with China going into a depression, Europe in a recession, the US getting into one, interest rates going up. And oh, by the way, you have all this Twitter overhang. I don't know how you get 40% growth at Tesla in the
well, the
first half
biggest
of
thing that's
next
going to
year.
hinder that is market share, you know, so they're
Yeah.
losing market share by the day with every other company, including new companies, you know, getting into the EV game. I mean, pretty much everybody's going to be manufacturing 100% EVs here before long.
Yeah.
You know, gas powered general vehicles will become a thing of the past at some point once everything ages out. But as
Mm-hmm.
far as new vehicles, I mean, yeah, I think it won't be long before there are no longer any gas powered new vehicles being manufactured.
Yeah. It's going to be really, really interesting. And again, I loved how you started this, right? I talk about recession and this and that, and you just start with opportunity. That is something that I wholeheartedly believe is the last 2 years, people, it was easy money. It was risk off. It was all about appreciation and getting lucky. Ponzi schemes and just all this stuff happening out there in quote unquote investing. The next 2 years, Greg, and something you have taught us since our first interview, is it's about the operator. I think great operators crush it in the next couple of years. The people that are willing to do the work, that don't gamble, don't just throw the money around, that actually do the work, make relationships, negotiate. Their operators are going to win in the next 2 years. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. Recessions, you know, some of the best opportunities come out of recessions in all assets. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see if we even get there. You know, do we even end up with a recession? What does it look like? So, I mean, it's hard to say right now, but everything is correcting. And obviously, you know, we needed a correction. Stuff was just way distorted, all assets. There was too much liquidity, the interest rates. I mean, it really messed things up. We have no benchmark. There is no textbook. There's no chart.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can compare this to because nothing is like where we are
Yeah.
right now. And the big thing is the fundamental change in the economies around the world, you know, with deglobalization, you know, the consumer around the
Mm-hmm.
world, the
Mm-hmm.
workplace around the world, and the type of work that we're doing
Yeah.
around the world. So it's just everything's completely different. And the younger generation, even our political climate, the younger generation coming up, I mean, it's a very, very different world than, you know, our grandparents and parents and you and I grew
Sure.
up in. It's just
Oh, for
completely
sure.
different. So we have no benchmark really. I mean, we're set, it's all new. It's all new
Yeah.
data inputs, new information. And, you know, that's why nobody's really been able to predict anything other than the Fed. Don't fight the Fed.
Don't fight
Risk
the
on,
Fed.
risk
Yeah.
off. If the Fed says go, go. If the Fed says
Mhm.
don't go, don't go. And the markets are still fighting the Fed because they don't believe
Mhm.
them,
Yeah.
because they messed up and missed inflation so bad. They're
Mhm.
saying, well, now they're, you know, they're missing what's coming and they're not seeing the recession that's ahead.
Yeah.
So it's all about the credibility, and this Fed has zero credibility.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with that more. It's funny when I I think that one of the things that we're going to look back on in 2030, right? So when you do that decade in review, I think it is a word that you used is deglobalization. I think when it's, if you snap your fingers and it's 2030, the US is manufacturing more stuff here, which is net positive in my opinion, but it's also inflationary.
Yeah,
And
and yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
the other thing we have is we're on the cusp of another world war that we like the likes we've never seen before. That's going to pit a a portion of the world against the rest of it.
yeah.
I mean, stuff's erupting all around right now that we haven't seen.
So just so I'm clear, when you use that term World War, I'm thinking you don't mean like militarily, but you mean more economic World
No, I mean
War.
militarily. I mean,
Oh,
we're
really?
closer.
Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. With what's going
Okay.
on in Russia, and now you've got North Korea chiming in. You've got
Mm,
China doing their thing, and Iran
sure.
doing their thing.
Mm,
So yeah, when you see
okay.
the axis of evil combine in those
Right.
countries I just mentioned, because they are
Sure.
evil, make no mistake,
Mm-hmm.
against the rest of the world. Um, yeah, I mean, we are
Okay.
we are closer to something like that than we've ever been in a long time, and it's a real threat. Now, I'm
Okay.
not, forecasting or whatever. It is what it is. If somebody messes up and lobs a wrong missile in the wrong direction accidentally somehow, yeah, I mean, you've got
Yeah.
everybody kind of coming after each other, and you can kind of see the alliances they're happening.
Sure. Yeah. It's yeah, that's a black swan that I hope does never shows up. I certainly see an economic war. I think with mutual assured destruction, which is something I think everybody understands. I think, meaning the leaders. I think any world war is fought economically, right, with tariffs and blockades and things of that nature. But
Well, a lot of time that's how tactical wars and conflicts start. It
true,
starts
no, that's
with
true. Yeah,
a
you
fight
strangle
over
this.
territory,
Mhm.
over economic
Yep,
gain,
yep,
over money, and control. I mean, back in the day, everybody wanted to take everybody else's gold. So,
yeah.
that's
You're
how
right.
world conflicts, that's how they begin a lot of times. So, anyways, I'm
Yeah,
not forecasting or anything like that. I'm just saying
it's
that
just something that's out there.
more
Yeah,
so than ever, I mean, we're right in the thick
yeah.
of it with Russia and what's going on there.
Yeah, and then the last thing to talk about for me, when people are asking me, pretty consistently my thoughts for 2023, right? There's kind of two things that if you could answer for me, I could give you an opinion. One is unemployment, right? Does it stay sub 4.5, or does it spike to 6, right? Because I think the outcomes are different if either of those happen. And then finally, the biggest one for me is interest rates, right? We have seen, to your point, the market not believing the Fed, right? The 10-year for the last week or so has been stuck at 3.5. It's up today. It's up to almost 3.6. So maybe the bond market is getting it, but yeah, you got to watch that. For me, I got to watch the 10-year Treasury, right? Being a real estate guy, it's
Nah,
moving a lot.
markets are just laying out the milk and cookies for Santa. That's all that's going on today.
Santa Claus rally. Yeah, a buddy of mine has been following it, and he said, yeah, what his opinion is we're gonna have another selling day today, but then Santa shows up tomorrow. I'm like, I hope so. A lot of people need Santa to come because it was an ugly week last week.
Yeah, yeah, and then watch out in January because that, or the end of the year because you got
Grinch.
tax loss harvesting, a lot of things going
Yeah,
on, and then going into next year, if recession, forecasts are true, then yeah, I mean we're gonna see the next leg down in markets.
very, very cool, Greg. Well, do me a favor. Where can people find you? Because you put out amazing stuff.
Yeah, gregdickerson.com. That's where everything lives. Go check it out.
Thank you so much.